Welcome back. While most eyes are on the June primaries, voters in parts of Staten Island are already heading to the ballot box to pick their next city council member. Early voting is underway for a special election for City Council District 51. That ends on Sunday, and then Tuesday, April 29th, is the actual election day. The district covers the South Shore of Staten Island from New Springville down to Tottenville, a traditionally conservative district. The nonpartisan special election was triggered after Joe Borelli resigned in January in order to become a consultant. While the winner of this race will complete Borelli's term this year, that person will have to run again almost immediately in the June primary and then the November general election for a new 4-year term that will begin in January. Tonight, we bring you a debate with the 3 candidates that are in the running. Griffin Fossella currently works in the finance industry. Frank Morano has been a longtime talk show radio host, most recently on WABC Radio. He's also a member of the community board. Cliff Hagen has spent over 2 decades as a middle school teacher and also serves on the community board. The rules that you see on your screen right now have been agreed to by all of the candidates. They will generally have 60 seconds for an opening statement. Answers to my questions will generally be limited to 60 seconds, and then there will be both a cross-examination round and a lightning round. You can also see this debate in full at NY1.com or on the Spectrum News app at any time. And you can join the conversation using the hashtag NY1Debate. Now for opening statements. The order for tonight's opening statements was determined by a random drawing. Cliff Hagen will go first. Good evening.
Good evening, Errol. Thank you for your hospitality here tonight, and thank you folks at home for listening, for tuning in. My name is Cliff Hagen. I'm a candidate for the special election for the South Shore, represent the South Shore and City Council. I am a faithful man, a man of integrity, man of experience. My wife and I married 25 years, have owned a home in Eltingville for 25 years, where we've raised our 3 daughters. 2 are off of college, 1 is still in high school. For the past 28 years, I've been a teacher with the Department of Education, a teacher of special education. And for more than 30 years, worked within the nonprofit world on Staten Island, supporting, advocating for, and encouraging folks with developmental disabilities, Down syndrome, and autism. I've also spent many, many years, my adult life, advocating on behalf of the open space of Staten Island, working to preserve open space across the borough. As president of Protectors of Pine Oak Woods and vice president of the Friends of Blue Heron Park. And I've delivered for Staten Island. I've helped to save Pouch Camp and the Goodhue Woods.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next up is Frank Morano.
Errol, thanks for having me tonight. Thanks to everybody watching, and thank you to Griffin and Cliff for agreeing to participate in this debate. I am running for City Council. I'm endorsed by the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, Citizens Union, most of the law enforcement unions, and a lot of other groups. And my goal for the next few minutes is to show you why. I think I have the passion and the knowledge of city government to really make a difference. I've been a talk show host for a long time. It's a job that I love. I love radio, love talking to people in the middle of the night. But everyone that I grew up with on Staten Island, everyone that I'm related to, everyone that I went to school with, moved off of Staten Island as soon as they were old enough to do so. My goal is to be able to turn to my 3-year-old son when he's an adult and tell him that I left it all out on the field and I did everything that I possibly could to keep him on Staten Island and make it so that he could afford to live on Staten Island and that he wanted to stay here. That's why I'm running. And by the way, if you like Griffin or Cliff better than me, rank me as your number 2 choice when you go to vote.
Okay, thank you. Griffin Fossella.
Thank you, Errol. And to everyone watching at home, my name is Griffin Fossella, candidate for the South Shore of Staten Island City Council seat. I'm running for the City Council because I love Staten Island. My family has represented Staten Island for decades, both as Republicans and Democrats. We've always fought for Staten Island and put it first, and I would like to continue that tradition. I would like to see people my age and my friends be able to come back to Staten Island and afford to live here and raise their families and start businesses. This can only be done by investing in Staten Island. We must make sure that our men and women in law enforcement have the resources that they need, because safe communities breed prosperity. We must also make sure that we have the best schools with the best teachers and the best and cleanest parks, because our residents deserve it. As your city councilman, I will fight against any policies that hurt the people of Staten Island, whether it be congestion pricing, transient hotels, battery storage facilities in residential neighborhoods, or no bail laws that allow criminals to devastate our communities. And as your councilman, I will always put Staten Island first.
Okay, thank you very much, candidates. We're going to start with the big issue that gets talked about in every corner of the city, and your district is no exception, and that's the cost of living, especially when it comes to housing. We looked at home prices in your district. We saw that the average home price is over $526,000 in Arden Heights, over $782,000 in Tottenville, and nearly $850,000 in Princes Bay. All of you have promised to fight against excessive development on the South Shore. So explain how you plan to bring housing prices down. And along the way, please explain whether you support the new City of Yes rezoning in particular that allows for the legalization or creation of new apartments in basements, attics, garages, and other additions to existing homes. Let's start with you.
So that's a big question. I appreciate that. And of course, yes, housing has, the price of housing has exploded on Staten Island. I was fortunate, bought my house 25 years ago. I'm now nearly a millionaire because of that. So the City of Yes, when proposed originally, was going to open up development all throughout the island. We pushed back. Community Board 3 voted against it. I wrote comments in opposition to City of Yes, and City Council saw fit to amend the City of Yes. You suggested that they were going to be building homes in people's backyards. They were going to further congest the South Shore. There was some truth to that. Some of the suggestions that I made to City Council came to fruition. Originally, these ADUs, accessory dwelling units, were going to be allowed in any 40 by 100 piece of property. That was scaled back to much larger properties. The idea of accessory dwelling units popping up around the borough, that's not going to happen now because.
But tell me, how do you square that circle? In other words, you need more housing. You need to bring the prices down.
And so the more housing will come with the city center, the town-centered development and the transit-oriented development. There will be more apartments built along the railroad. There will be more apartments made available in the town centers, if you would. Staten Island has a number of towns. Right, that's also part of the City of Yes, which seems to accommodate more development for sure.
Okay, Griffin, tell us what you think about that.
Yeah, on the campaign trail, that's what people are complaining about. Someone my age can't afford to buy a house in Staten Island. They just simply can't afford to live. And what I'm hearing the most is that property taxes are just sky high. And I think that's a result of insane government spending that is spent on things that the people of Staten Island simply don't want, and yet we're bearing the brunt of it. And as a good Republican conservative, I believe in lower government spending and tighter government spending. And the city has just lost its way in that aspect. When it comes to the City of Yes, it's a blanket policy for the city, and it just doesn't fit the character for the people of Staten Island. Are times changing? Yes. Will construction continue? Yes. But I think the City of Yes just completely misses the mark for the people of Staten Island. Maybe it should be a borough-oriented program that it's administered. Queens is different than Staten Island. Manhattan is different than Staten Island. We don't have the transit infrastructure that some of these boroughs, enjoy.
I don't know how far down the path you are of, getting a spouse and starting a family and so forth, but generally, do you feel like, where's an area? You say you want to sort of stay in the area, you want to be able to own a home and so forth. Where's an area where you think that might be possible, and what kind of price range do you think will be available to you?
Yeah, I love my neighborhood in Great Kills. For example, my brother bought a house in Newdorp, the section of Staten Island, and it was over $600,000. A lot of these things turn into bidding wars, and then you have to put money into these properties. But a lot of it comes back to the conservative aspect is that you have to manage your own financials. It's not the government's job to hand things out to you.
Okay. What do you think, Frank?
I agree with a great deal that both of these fellows just said. For starters, to Griffin's point on the property taxes are out of control, and it just fundamentally strikes people as totally unfair that my mother, for a modest two-family house in Woodrow, has to pay more in property taxes than someone like Bill de Blasio was paying for a Park Slope brownstone. Now, Bill de Blasio, to his credit, realized that something was wrong with that formula. He and a majority of council members, including Republicans like Joe Borelli, Democrats like Justin Brennan, pushed through a reform in the property tax formula, but it's been stymied in Albany, in the state legislature. That needs to happen pronto. The property tax formula is so out of whack, and it's completely opaque. Nobody even understands how it works. That needs to be altered. Additionally, the people that have the most difficult time that I'm encountering on a daily basis, and I know firsthand, in affording to live on Staten Island are younger folks and older folks. For the younger folks, we need to expand property tax freezes and rebates. For younger folks, we need to expand the HPD closing cost program.
And tell me about City of Yes.
I'm totally opposed to City of Yes for Staten Island. I think there are parts of the city that need to scale up and should have denser housing. Staten Island completely lacks the infrastructure, even for the modified City of Yes as it's going to affect in Staten Island. We don't have sufficient infrastructure for our needs now to deal with the kind of density that they're talking about with City of Yes. It just wouldn't fly. It wouldn't work. It'd be a disaster.
Okay. So, I mean, again, low density means high prices, generally speaking, just on the basis of supply and demand.
Part of the reason people can't afford to live there, though, is property taxes. Part of the reason that retirees are fearful they may have to move out of the state is because New York City retirees with very generous New York City pensions are being forced to move out because they're afraid their health care is going to be taken away. That's something I'm going to stop. I'm going to fight against. And Cold War era veterans don't get the same sort of property tax breaks that other veterans do. That's crazy. There are these little things that can be mended to make for a more affordable property tax equation for a lot of folks.
Okay, I want to stay with you for a minute, Frank. We're going to go to our next topic, which is public safety. The 123rd Precinct, which includes the South Shore, has no murders or reported shootings this year. That's great news. However, many other categories of crime, including burglaries, assaults, both misdemeanor and felony assaults, are substantially higher than they were before the pandemic. Why do you think that's happening, and what would you do about it if elected to the council?
Well, and the other category that I see day in and day out, not only knowing victims of, but hearing that people are afraid of, is home invasions and the related issue of auto theft and catalytic converter theft. It's a related issue because people are going into folks' houses, taking the keys to then go take their car. I think a lot of this is people fleeing to New Jersey, coming to Staten Island to steal cars and then going to New Jersey. I think a lot of the assaults is part of that. Some of this is drug related. We've made a lot of progress on the opioid crisis front in Staten Island, but the drug problem still exists in a big way in Staten Island. In terms of what we need to do about it, look, I think the police department, all the precincts on Staten Island do a great job. So does the DA's office. I want to be more of a partner to them in creating public awareness about campaigns they already have. And I want to create a more visible and more vigilant police presence, getting police more involved in the community. So it's a disincentive from people that may be bad actors, whether they live in Staten Island or New Jersey. Have sector patrol cars so that people see they can't get away with this kind of thing.
Okay. What's your take on that, Griffin?
Yeah, the people of New York City are lucky to have the best police officers in the whole world. And as Frank said, a lot of this is gang related. A lot of these people come over from New Jersey, Connecticut, steal the cars. And a lot of these people are teenagers, and they can't prosecute them within New York because, it goes to family court. And I think that's something that needs to be worked on. We're lucky in Staten Island to have a district attorney that will actually prosecute criminals. But, just a personal story, a friend of mine actually had his car stolen out of his driveway, and when they tracked it, it was in Newark, New Jersey, where it got into a car accident. It was gang members that actually took the car. I mean, we need to prosecute criminals and keep them behind bars.
Okay. What do you think, Cliff?
So just to correct a misconception, right? District 51 encompasses the 123 as well as the 122 and the 121, right? So it's more than just the one precinct in the district, and all of those men and women are doing a fabulous job. The safest precincts in the city. What the issue, I suspect, is we're losing our experienced police officers, right? The retention of police officers dropped off precipitously. We've lost over 1,000 police officers already this year. And recruiting new police officers has been a tremendous difficulty for the city. Morale is low. It doesn't seem as such an attractive a leadership role within the community as it once did. And we have to work to fix that. We certainly need to work on their retirements, the benefits, bring them up comparable with what they get out in Nassau and Suffolk, what they get up in New Westchester. We need to respect them not only in the uniform on the beat, but financially as well in retirement, and recruit new men and women. We need to find the best of the best who are going to go out and police our communities.
And that would affect how they feel about the job and how well they're doing, say, for their families. What would be the public safety payoff there?
Well, the experienced patrol officers, they know the community. They know how to go about patrolling the community, how to address those concerns before they become bigger concerns.
And Frank brought up something I'd love to hear from both of you. Is the area being patrolled properly? Meaning, you are in proximity to a state boundary that criminals try and take advantage of. Are we doing a good job of keeping track of that?
I think the men and women of the police department in Staten Island are doing a fantastic job. You know, when these car thefts really skyrocketed over the past couple of years, they did increase their patrols and they really did crack down on it. And, you know, checkpoints at the bridge, that was something that they instituted, you know, to stop these gang members from fleeing. So I think they're doing a great job, but they just need more resources so they could keep us safe.
Yeah, just last Thursday evening, I was down in Tottenville at the 123 Community Precinct meeting, where they make themselves available to the community. There were 30, 40 members of the community there addressing their concerns. And the police department knew already what those concerns were. They were already addressing many of those concerns. They're very vigilant,
I don't
responsive.
disagree with anything either of these gentlemen said. The one thing that I do think we all need to speak up for, whoever wins this seat, is to make sure Staten Island gets its fair share, not only in terms of resources, but in terms of attention. I think Commissioner Tisch is doing some interesting things now in terms of quality of life and these Q precincts. But Staten Island was left out of the initial pilot program. Why? This is an area where the fewer cops have to patrol a greater landmass than the rest of the city. We should have been the first borough that was considered for one of these Q precincts.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take a short break now. We'll have more of this debate when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to our debate in the special election for Staten Island's 51st City Council District. It is time now for the cross-examination. That's when each candidate gets a chance to ask one question of one rival. We're going to start with you, Cliff Hagen.
One question for one of these gentlemen, not both.
That is correct.
Okay. So I suppose I'll go with you, Frank. I'll ask you because on behalf of my union members, the UFT, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So there is a push in City Council. The UFT is trying to make right by the paraprofessionals, offering them a $10,000 annual bump in salary. I know your Republican counterparts, the 5 other members of City Council, are opposed to that $10,000 payment. But I know that you're interested in receiving the benefit of the school teacher endorsement, and you would love to have those votes on the South Shore of Staten Island. So where would you stand with that? Would you support the paraprofessionals, the school teachers, the UFT, in asking for that $10,000, or are you going to stand with the Republican Party and oppose that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I believe in collective bargaining, and I don't think we should be looking to undo all the benefits of collective bargaining. But in that particular case with the paraprofessionals, they're so woefully underpaid, not only for the work they do, but with inflation in comparison with what they've made historically, not only in New York City, but the rest of the state. I'm enthusiastically in support of the paraprofessionals getting that $10,000. And honestly, given the work that a lot of the paras do, it still wouldn't be enough money.
Okay. Your turn to ask a question.
I'm going to ask Griffin. Griffin, you've made an issue in the campaign that you're the only real Republican running. You've made an issue of your support for Donald Trump. And yet, in 2016, in the general election, what a lot of people view as the most consequential general election in history, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, you didn't vote. 2017, mayor's race, Nicole Malliotakis and Bill de Blasio, you didn't vote. 2018, Andrew Cuomo's up for re-election, so there's the House of Representatives. You didn't vote that year. You're clearly very into public safety. 2019 DA's race, you didn't vote in that year either. Why? Oh, you also didn't manage to contribute to a single Republican that didn't have the last name Fossella. Why have you been so inactive? Why didn't you vote in those elections? And if you're the only real Republican, why haven't you contributed to a single Republican you weren't related to?
Well, I could answer that because during that time, I was away at college. I can get an absentee ballot, I get it. 2016, I did get an absentee ballot, I submitted it. I don't know what happened at the post office. In terms of the other ones, I was simply at college. That's it. I mean, it wasn't supporting a Democrat or anything. And in terms of donating to a candidate, I've never even heard that as an attack on an opponent, just because my fiscal situation at that time did not call for it.
Well, you couldn't give $10?
Well, that's his answer. Your chance to ask a question.
Frank, with public safety being such a big issue, and with the countless number of cop killers that have been let out of prison by the parole board, why would you write a letter, according to the New York Post, to free a convicted criminal from prison who you didn't really even know, and then went on to scam people and then get put back in prison? And will you release this letter that you wrote for him? And did you write any other letters to parolees?
First of all, I think the fact that you're digging up stuff that I did years ago and talked about on the radio, it shows how desperate your campaign is. Secondly,
I wouldn't call it desperate.
Well, I would, and I just did. Secondly, I think anybody that should appreciate the importance of second chances in public life is anyone with the last name Fossella. And I don't want my judgment questioned by anybody with the last name Fossella, given your record and given the record of some of the other people that are supporting you. If you want to look at what I've done on criminal justice issues, let's look at them. Let's look at the fact that I'm endorsed by every public safety union that has made an endorsement in this race. There's a reason, because they know I have the energy, the intellect, the ability to do this job, and you're a complete neophyte, which is why you don't show up to anything. You don't show up to vote. You don't show up to work on other Republican campaigns. You don't show up in the community as Cliff and I do. The fact that this is what you're choosing to focus on is a clear indication of your desperation.
You lack judgment.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You ought to know.
All right, gentlemen. Let's move on. You know what? Let me ask you
Could I just suggest my daughters both came home from college to vote for me this week?
Oh, well, okay. Well, we're glad you got through college. Where'd you go to college, by the way?
University of Rhode Island.
Okay, good for you. I want to ask you a quick question, and if you can give me a brief response, and then we'll move on to our next topic. If you're elected, what committee would you most want to serve on, and why? Let's start with you, Cliff.
So, unfortunately, due to Joe Borelli's hubris, I guess you could say, we no longer have a minority leader representing Staten Island in City Council, and so we no longer have a voice with the budget. I would like to get involved with those discussions. Of course, education and parks. I've been a huge advocate for parks for more than 30 years, and I think I deserve a seat there as well.
Okay, Frank.
I'd love to be on the budget negotiating team. Ultimately, public safety. For a lot of the reasons these gentlemen have mentioned and that I've mentioned, public safety is issue number one. Staten Island deserves a place at the table. And given Staten Island's history with garbage over the years, solid waste management is also a committee that I'm very interested in.
Okay.
Public safety is the issue of this election, and it is on the minds of the people of the South Shore of Staten Island. And that would be my main focus. I would also love to do something with education because, you know, if kids are given a good opportunity at a young age, I mean, their opportunities are endless.
Okay. I want to move to our next topic and ask each of you about your experience. I want you to pick one part of your life in public service, whether it's a successful program, an action that you took, an organization that you were part of, that you want voters to remember as they head to the polls. And let's start with you, Griffin.
In high school, I was a co-founder of a group at Monsignor Farrell High School called Hearing Our Heroes, which was a veterans advocacy organization, which is still ongoing at the school. We would go to the VA hospital weekly and just sit down with veterans who many suffer from PTSD and drug issues. And you're just sitting down with these guys for 1 or 2 hours a week. You know, you could see the impact it made on their lives. These guys had no one in their life. And we really, you know, acted as just a sounding board for them, someone to speak to. And, you know, that's something that I'm very proud of.
And what does that say to the voters that you want them to know about you?
I think it means that I care about this community, and I respect the men and women who have served this country and sacrificed their lives so we enjoy the freedoms, and that we could sit here today and, you know, argue and discuss the topics that are affecting us.
Okay, Cliff.
I don't think that's a fair question for a man who's been in public service for more than 30 years to focus on one particular project.
Well, think of it as the voters are literally heading to the polls.
Yeah, so
and you want to yell one thing at them on the sidewalk.
The past borough president, James Otto, asked me to join a working group that included the Department of City Planning, each of the electeds from Staten Island, the Department of Buildings, Department of Parks, and we sat monthly for more than 6 years trying to amend the different special natural area districts, South Richmond Special Areas District, zoning codes for Staten Island, codifying, making it easier for developing, yet better protecting the natural areas. That was a lot of work. I learned a lot. I contributed quite a bit. And what we brought to City Council was ultimately approved. Negated a few months later with the city of yes, but approved at the time.
Tell me, what does that say about you that you think the voters need to know?
I have a commitment to making Staten Island a better place to live, a greener, cleaner, healthier place to live.
Yeah,
and I'm willing to work across aisle. Like I'm a registered Democrat, I'm a union man, but the Republican borough president appointed me to that working group. The Republican borough president now appointed me to Community Board 3 because they recognize I'm more than just a Democrat. I'm a guy who loves Staten Island.
Okay, Frank.
Quite a bit, but if I had to pick one, it's the fact that I've testified before every single charter revision commission since 2002. I believe I hold the record for testimony before New York City charter revision commissions, and each year I've offered detailed prescriptions for how they should fix city government. Some of those suggestions they've implemented, like shortening the duration between a mayoral vacancy and a special election, ranked choice voting, although not to the extent that I would have put it in, and many they just haven't. But I think what that shows is that I'm not a Johnny-come-lately to government, that I've thought about the big issues facing city government for a long time, actually offered solutions, and mixed it up with people who may have a different view. And I've learned quite a bit about the process. The other thing is, Cliff and I serve on Community Board 3. They were the last community board in the city still to be meeting by Zoom. And it was my urging and my being vocal about it that brought us back to in-person meetings, which I'm very proud of.
Okay. Gentlemen, it is time now for the lightning round. Each candidate will be asked to answer my questions with a brief response, usually yes or no. We'll start with you, Griffin. Who are you supporting in the race for mayor?
Whoever the Republican candidate is.
Okay, Cliff.
Whoever shows to have the most integrity.
Okay, still no names? Frank.
Curtis Lewa, enthusiastic.
Curtis Lewa, right. Frank, should Mayor Adams' criminal case have been dropped?
Absolutely not. Once you're indicted by a grand jury, that case ought to be adjudicated by a jury.
Okay.
I agree, absolutely.
I think it's at the discretion of the Department of Justice.
Okay. Let's start with you, Cliff. Do you think Adrienne Adams has been a good speaker?
The city seems to have accomplished quite a bit, yes.
Okay, Frank.
No, she's been horrendous.
Okay.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Frank, when was the last time you took the Staten Island Railway?
Friday.
Okay, Cliff.
When I came into to the campaign finance board to make my video last month.
Okay.
I took it 3 weeks ago.
Okay, cool. Do you own or rent, Griffin?
I still live at home, so.
Okay.
Got a mortgage.
Got a mortgage?
We own.
Okay. Has President Trump been a net positive for the district?
Yes, absolutely.
Seemingly so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is always controversial. What's your favorite restaurant in the district, Griffin?
Danny's Italian Bistro.
Okay.
Yeah, you're asking hard questions here.
Yeah, I know.
There are 3 pizzerias we go to regularly, but I'm going to go with Sal and Lloyd's.
Okay.
The Annandale Terrace, it's the only place where you could get a lobster tail or an omelet instantly, and both are magnificent.
All right. Frank, do you support the requirement that residents compost their organic trash?
I'm all for composting, but I'm totally against fines. I'm for enhanced composting with more public awareness, not with fines.
Okay. Good.
I've been composting my yard for 25 years, and I think it's such an overreach that the city should be putting this upon us.
Okay. Griffin.
Absolutely not, no.
Okay. Let me ask you. I think I have time for a short answer. So the city budget is currently being negotiated. The winner of this race will be part of the negotiations. Is there any program that you think is wasteful and that you would argue should be cut, Cliff?
Oh, we just discussed it, composting.
Okay, but cut altogether.
Not cut altogether, but made voluntary.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think he said it right, composting. But, I think there's also some programs, like including bike lanes in parts of Staten Island, I think are just unnecessary and a waste of money.
I don't think it was necessary for a commission to study reparations for slavery.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys about a specific program. You've all been critics of congestion pricing. That's understandable. We understand the argument for people who are in your district. Would you support the Trump administration when it threatens to cut funding to New York in retaliation? Cliff.
So I'm a litigant on the lawsuit to prevent congestion pricing, along with Griffin's father, as a member of the UFT. And I think that should be played out in the courts. I don't think the federal government should be getting involved in what happens here in the city at all.
Okay.
I think the federal government has every right to squash congestion pricing.
Okay, including penalizing non-transport relation or non-congestion related funding?
It's a bargaining tactic, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I'm proud to have the support of Congresswoman Malliotakis, and she's been a leader to make sure programs that benefit our 9/11 victims aren't cut. And I don't care what's going on. Our public safety is too important to see our cops and our first responders cut by the federal government.
Okay, that's going to be the last word. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Congratulations on getting this far. We'll wish you all the best of luck. I look forward to seeing one or maybe more of you down at City Hall in the future. That is going to do it for this debate and tonight's show. If you missed any part of the debate, you can head to NY1.com or the Spectrum News app. That's where you'll find more information about the primary race and where candidates stand on different issues. Remember, early voting in this special election goes through Sunday the 27th, and then Election Day is on Tuesday, April 29th. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening.